If you are shopping for a used Honda Pilot, the biggest mistake you can make is assuming every Pilot is automatically a smart buy just because it has a Honda badge on the grille. That is how many people end up buying a family SUV that looks clean on the outside, drives smoothly for the first 10 minutes, and then slowly turns into a money trap with transmission problems, engine concerns, electrical issues, rough shifting, expensive timing belt maintenance, or comfort problems that make daily driving more stressful than it should be. Honda built some excellent Pilots, but they also built certain model years that developed enough repeat issues that smart buyers, especially senior buyers, need to slow down before handing over their money. And when you are buying a Honda Pilot as a senior, reliability means something very different. You are not just asking, can this SUV carry 7 or 8 people? You are asking, will it start every morning without drama? Will it shift smoothly in traffic? Is it easy to climb in and out of? Are the seats comfortable enough for longer drives? Are the controls simple enough to use without fighting the screen? Can I see clearly out of it? And most importantly, can I own it without being surprised by a repair bill that ruins my month? Because a used Pilot can be a wonderful retirement SUV when you buy the right year. But if you buy the wrong one, the same vehicle can become expensive, frustrating, and hard to trust. So in this video, we are breaking down the 4 Honda Pilot years I would be careful about avoiding, and the 5 Honda Pilot years that are actually worth the buy, especially if you want comfort, space, reliability, and predictable ownership costs. And I want to make one thing clear from the beginning. The worst Pilot is not always the oldest one, and the best Pilot is not always the newest one. Sometimes the smartest buy is the final year before Honda redesigned the vehicle, because that is when many problems have already been corrected. And sometimes the year people rush toward because it looks more modern is the exact year you should inspect more carefully. Let us start with the worst years first, because avoiding one bad Honda Pilot can save you more money than finding a small discount on a better one. Now, the first Honda Pilot year I would tell you to be very careful with is the 2003 model, and this one is very important because it was the very first year of the Honda Pilot. First-year models are often where hidden problems show up after real owners start using them every day, and with the 2003 Pilot, the biggest concern is the automatic transmission. Early Pilots became known for serious transmission complaints, and this is not the type of small annoyance where you simply change a sensor and move on. When the transmission starts slipping, shuddering, overheating, or failing to shift correctly, the repair can quickly become one of the most expensive repairs on the whole vehicle. The 2003 Pilot was also involved in transmission-related recall activity because certain operating conditions could create excessive heat, gear damage, and even the risk of transmission lockup. And for a senior buyer, this should concern you because a transmission problem is not just about money. It affects confidence. Nobody wants to pull into traffic, climb a hill, or merge onto the highway while wondering whether the vehicle will hesitate, jerk, or suddenly lose smooth power delivery. And because the 2003 model is now very old, you are not only looking at transmission risk, you are also looking at aging suspension parts, worn engine mounts, leaking power steering components, old electronics, possible rust in snowy areas, and timing belt maintenance that must be verified because the Honda V6 uses a timing belt, not a lifetime timing chain. If the seller cannot show proof of timing belt and water pump service, you must assume it is due, and that alone can add a large bill immediately after purchase. So yes, a 2003 Honda Pilot may look cheap, and yes, some owners have taken excellent care of them, but as a senior buyer looking for peace of mind, this is not the year I would chase unless it is exceptionally clean, fully serviced, inspected by a mechanic, and priced low enough to justify the risk. Now, the second Honda Pilot year I would be careful with is the 2005 model. And this is the kind of year that can fool buyers because it sits a little later in the first generation, so people assume Honda had already corrected the early problems. But the 2005 Pilot still falls inside that older first-generation window, where transmission behavior, torque converter complaints, cooling system age, and transmission fluid condition deserve serious inspection before purchase. One inspection concern that comes up with older Pilots is radiator and transmission cooler condition. On vehicles where the radiator cooler system fails internally, coolant and transmission fluid can mix, and once that happens, the transmission fluid can turn into a milky, contaminated mess. If the vehicle is driven like that for too long, transmission damage can become very expensive. That does not mean every 2005 Pilot has this problem, but it does mean you should not judge one by shiny paint, clean leather, or a seller saying, "It drives great." Before buying a 2005 Pilot, the transmission fluid should be inspected carefully. If it looks burnt, dark, contaminated, or milky, walk away unless a qualified mechanic has verified exactly what is going on. For a senior buyer, this is a serious concern because most people buying a used SUV are not trying to rebuild transmissions after retirement. They are trying to buy something dependable that can handle grocery trips, family visits, meetings, doctor appointments, and highway travel without creating anxiety. The 2005 Pilot also has the normal age-related issues you expect from a vehicle this old, including worn suspension bushings, old motor mounts, weak air conditioning components, door lock actuator problems, interior wear, and possible rust depending on where the vehicle has lived. And because the Pilot is a large SUV with a V6 engine, fuel economy is not its strongest point either, so the only reason to buy one should be because it is truly clean, well-maintained, and mechanically verified. If the seller cannot prove transmission service, cooling system care, and timing belt service, do not let the Honda badge make the decision for you. Now, this next year is where many buyers get fooled because the SUV looks much newer, the interior feels more modern, and the price often looks attractive compared with Toyota Highlanders and newer Pilots. The third Honda Pilot year I would be very cautious about is the 2016 model. This was the first year of the third-generation Pilot, and this is a perfect example of what I call the redesign trap. On paper, the 2016 Pilot looked like a major upgrade. It had a smoother body style, more technology, better fuel economy, more modern safety features, and a more refined cabin than the boxier second-generation Pilot. But underneath that newer look, the 2016 developed enough owner complaints that senior buyers should not treat it like a guaranteed safe Honda purchase. The biggest concern is transmission behavior, especially on higher trims that use the ZF 9-speed automatic transmission. Some owners complained about hesitation, rough shifting, delayed engagement, jerky low-speed behavior, and general shift confusion. And for a senior driver, that kind of transmission behavior can be very frustrating because the vehicle may feel unpredictable in stop-and-go traffic, parking lots, hills, and low-speed turns. A younger driver may ignore it or adapt to it, but if you are buying a comfortable SUV for relaxed driving, you do not want a transmission that constantly makes you wonder whether something is wrong. The 2016 Pilot also had owner complaints involving fuel injectors, warning lights, infotainment glitches, electrical issues, and certain vehicles were included in serious engine-related recall activity involving connecting rod bearing wear. That does not mean every 2016 Pilot will fail, but it does mean you must be far more careful than someone who is simply saying, "It is a Honda, so it must be fine." Before buying a 2016, check the VIN for open recalls. Confirm whether the timing belt service has been done if the mileage is high enough. Test drive it long enough for the transmission to warm up. And make sure there are no misfire codes, hesitation, rough idle, dashboard warnings, or strange shifting behavior. If the transmission feels confused during your test drive, do not let the seller convince you that it is normal. A senior-friendly SUV should feel smooth, predictable, and calm. Now, the fourth Honda Pilot year I would be cautious about is the 2017 model. This is the year some buyers assume must be safer because it came after the first year of the redesign, but that is not always how vehicle problems work. Sometimes the second year improves things, and sometimes many of the same complaints continue. With the 2017 Pilot, some of the same concerns carried over, especially on trims with the 9-speed transmission. Touring and elite trims are the ones buyers should inspect most carefully because some owners reported rough shifts, hesitation, gear hunting, and low-speed confusion. Other reported concerns included electrical complaints, infotainment problems, fuel injector issues, and auto idle stop frustrations. And this is important because senior buyers often prefer vehicles that feel simple and consistent, not vehicles that require software updates, dealer visits, and complicated explanations just to behave normally. The 2017 Pilot can be a good SUV if it has been properly maintained, updated, and inspected, but it is not the stress-free recommendation I would give to a senior buyer who simply wants the safest used Pilot year to purchase. If you are considering one, pay close attention to the trim level, because not every 2017 Pilot has the same transmission. Lower trims commonly used a 6-speed automatic, while higher trims used the 9-speed automatic. That difference is vital for making an informed decision. During the test drive, do not just drive around the block. Drive it slowly, accelerate gently, accelerate firmly, reverse, park, stop at traffic lights, and then merge onto a faster road if possible. You are looking for hesitation, clunks, delayed engagement, flares, harsh downshifts, or any feeling that the vehicle is confused about what gear it wants. If it does that, keep shopping. And guys, if you have owned a Honda Pilot before, leave a comment with the year you had and whether it was reliable or gave you problems, because real owner experience helps other buyers avoid expensive mistakes before they spend their money. And if this kind of used car buying guide is helpful, make sure you like the video and subscribe to the channel so you do not miss the next one. Now let us move on to the Honda Pilot years I would actually recommend. And I want you to notice something here. The best years are not always the flashiest years. They are the years that usually make more sense if you want long-term comfort, space, and peace of mind. The first best Honda Pilot year worth buying is the 2008 model, and I would call this the best cheap and simple Pilot if you find one that has been well maintained. This was the final year of the first generation, and final year models are often better used buys because the manufacturer has had several years to correct many of the early problems. The 2008 Pilot still has that older Honda SUV feel, with a boxy shape, excellent outward visibility, simple controls, and a cabin layout that is easy to understand without digging through complicated screen menus. For senior buyers who value simplicity over flashy technology, that is a real advantage. The 2008 Pilot is also easier to judge mechanically because it does not hide behind too much modern electronics. You can feel how it shifts, hear how the engine runs, and inspect the basic components without needing a dealership computer for everything. However, because it is now an older vehicle, you must not buy it blindly. You need proof of timing belt and water pump service. You need to check for rust. You need to inspect the radiator and transmission fluid. And you need to make sure the air conditioning, power locks, windows, and suspension are still in good shape. If you find a clean 2008 with service records and a smooth shifting transmission, it can be a strong budget choice for someone who wants a simple, spacious Honda SUV without paying newer model prices. But if it has no maintenance history, leaks, rust, harsh shifting, or old timing belt records, walk away, because cheap only helps if it does not become expensive immediately after purchase. The second best Honda Pilot year worth buying is the 2012 model, and I would call this the best visibility and value balance. By 2012, the second generation Pilot had matured, and this generation gives you a useful balance between old-school simplicity and newer safety and comfort. The 2012 Pilot still has the boxy design that many drivers love because it provides excellent visibility, a practical cargo area, and a cabin that feels open instead of cramped. For seniors, visibility is not a small detail. A vehicle that lets you see clearly out of the front, sides, and rear can make parking, lane changes, and neighborhood driving far less stressful. The 2012 also avoids some of the early third-generation technology frustrations because it is not trying too hard to be fancy. The controls are more physical, the driving feel is predictable, and the V6 engine is generally strong when maintained properly. But again, the timing belt is also very important. If the mileage is around 100,000 miles or higher, and there is no receipt for timing belt, water pump, tensioner, and related service, you need to budget for that immediately. A good 2012 Pilot can be a dependable buy, but a neglected one can still become expensive, so the maintenance history is what separates the smart purchase from the risky one. Now, the third best year, and probably one of the strongest Honda Pilot years overall, is the 2015 model. I would call this the best overall older Honda Pilot to buy. This is the final year of the second generation, and for many used SUV buyers, this is the sweet spot. It gives you the mature version of the second generation platform before Honda moved into the more complicated third generation design in 2016. This is quite essential because the 2015 keeps a proven V6 engine, a more traditional automatic transmission feel, useful interior space, and a simple dashboard layout that many senior buyers will find easier to live with than the newer touchscreen heavy designs. The 2015 Pilot is not the most modern-looking SUV, and some people may think the boxy shape looks dated, but that boxy design is exactly what makes it practical. It is easier to see out of, easier to judge in parking lots, and easier to load with groceries, luggage, walkers, mobility aids, or family items. The seats are supportive, the cabin is roomy, and the controls are generally logical. For senior buyers, this is the kind of vehicle that may not impress your neighbor with futuristic styling, but it will quietly do the job every day without making ownership feel complicated. If I were looking for a used Honda Pilot on a reasonable budget, the 2015 would be one of the first years I would search for, as long as the maintenance records are strong and the inspection is clean. The fourth best Honda Pilot year worth buying is the 2021 model, and I would call this the best newer comfort pick. By this point, Honda had moved well beyond the early third-generation launch period, and the Pilot had become more refined, more comfortable, and more modern while still offering the space that made people love the model in the first place. The 2021 Pilot gives you stronger available safety technology, a quieter cabin, better ride comfort, and a more modern driving experience than the older 2012 or 2015 models. For seniors who want driver assistance features, better crash protection, and a newer vehicle that still feels familiar, the 2021 can make a lot of sense. But because it has more electronics than the older Pilots, you should inspect more than just the engine and transmission. Check for completed recalls, verify that any needed software updates have been done, test the auto idle stop system if equipped, and make sure the transmission shifts smoothly at both low and highway speeds. Also, test the backup camera, parking sensors if equipped, infotainment screen, climate controls, power tailgate, heated seats, and all driver assistance features. A newer SUV is only a better buy when everything actually works, because electrical and comfort features can become expensive and annoying if they are already acting up before you buy. And finally, the fifth best Honda Pilot year worth buying is the 2022 model. I would call this the best final year modern Pilot. This was the final year of the third generation before Honda redesigned the Pilot again, and that makes it attractive for the same reason the 2015 is attractive. Honda had already spent years refining the platform. The 2022 Pilot gives you a comfortable ride, a strong V6 engine, a roomy cabin, modern safety features, and a more polished ownership experience than the earlier 2016 redesign year. If your budget allows for something newer and you want a Pilot that feels modern without jumping into the first year of the next redesign, the 2022 is one of the smarter choices. For senior buyers, it offers a good balance of comfort and familiarity. It is not as old as the 2008 or 2012, it is more refined than the 2015, and it avoids being the first year of the newer 2023 redesign. But because prices are higher, you need to be even more disciplined. Do not pay top money for a Pilot with poor maintenance records, accident history, worn tires, brake vibration, warning lights, or neglected fluids. At this price level, you should expect a clean history, smooth driving behavior, completed recalls, working electronics, and a professional pre-purchase inspection before you buy. Now here is the most important buying rule of all. Do not shop by year alone. Shop by maintenance history. A good Honda Pilot year with neglected oil changes, missed timing belt service, old transmission fluid, worn suspension, cheap tires, hidden accident damage, and ignored warning lights can be worse than a risky year that was maintained carefully by one owner. Always ask for service records. Always check the VIN for open recalls, and never forget to test drive the vehicle long enough for the engine and transmission to fully warm up. Listen for clunks over bumps, feel for transmission hesitation, check the air conditioning at idle and while driving, inspect the tires for uneven wear, and sit in the seat long enough to know whether your back and knees are comfortable. And if you are buying as a senior, do not ignore the small daily details. Open the doors, step in and out several times. Adjust the seat. Check whether the steering wheel position feels comfortable. Make sure the climate controls are easy to see and reach. Try the backup camera. Test the headlights at night if possible. Check blind spots. Make sure the liftgate is not too heavy. These are the things that make a vehicle easy to live with, and they are just as important as the horsepower, leather seats, or a shiny exterior. The one thing I would strongly recommend before buying any used Honda Pilot is paying for a professional pre-purchase inspection. Spending $100 or $200 before purchase can save you thousands later, especially on a vehicle where transmission, timing belt, engine, suspension, and electronic issues can become expensive quickly. That inspection is not wasted money. It is insurance against regret. So if I had to summarize this simply, be very cautious with the 2003, 2005, 2016, and 2017 Honda Pilot years. Strongly consider the 2008, 2012, 2015, 2021, and 2022 models if they have clean maintenance history and pass a proper inspection. And if you are buying as a senior, prioritize smooth shifting, easy visibility, comfortable seats, simple controls, completed maintenance, and predictable repair costs over shiny paint, low monthly payments, or a seller telling you it is a Honda, so you have nothing to worry about. Because the best Honda Pilot is not the one that looks newest in the driveway. It is the one that starts every morning, shifts smoothly, keeps you comfortable, gives you confidence in traffic, and does not surprise you with a repair bill that takes the joy out of owning it. That is the Honda Pilot that is actually worth the buy. If this video helped you, like it, share it, and subscribe to the channel for more used car buying guides. And before you go, watch this next video on the channel, Toyota Highlander Years to Avoid and Best Years to Buy for Seniors.